guys, let me give you a little inside baseball over here at Bad Guy Inc. I had made a piece weeks ago, and it had to do with an arm wrestling match. Devin Larratt getting ready. It's a rematch for him. He's taking on the Turk. This is going to be for the super heavyweight absolute championship, East versus West. I make this whole piece. I spend about 5, 6, 7 minutes. When I get done, I send it off to my producer out in Dana Point, California. Gets everything loaded, matches the audio to bring it to you guys. Might sound simple to have a little YouTube page, and you could do it in a simple way, or you could do it in a nicer way. We try to do it in a nice way for you guys. This piece never saw the light of day. I called my producer and I said, hey, what happened to the arm wrestling piece? I think you misplaced it. He said, Chael, I'm not going to air it. I said, why? He said, for the last 7 years, you've had this page and you have a deal with your audience that you tell them the truth, and you were not upholding your end. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, Chael, you don't know arm wrestling. You don't know arm wrestling at all. Why are you making an arm wrestling piece? This is what he says to me. I thought I did know arm wrestling, as a matter of fact. I used to do arm wrestling. He says, all right, Chael, in an arm wrestling contest, how many times you got to put the guy's hand down to win? Thought it was 1. He said, I rest my case. All right, turns out it's 5, in case anybody didn't know that. But I had great experience with arm wrestling when I was growing up. I mean, I could just remember one. Not only at Wood Middle School did we determine who was in what pecking order based on arm wrestling, there was a movie around that same time, Over the Top, with Sylvester Stallone. He was a truck driver. He's driving down the road, and he had this device, made this device where he's practicing arm wrestling. I had some level of weight machine at my house. My dad had picked it up in a garage sale. As a matter of fact, my dad bought it from D.B. Cooper, and I am not joking about that. So I had devised, on my own, with the help of this movie and with the knowledge that Wood Middle School was contesting arm wrestling, I devised my own way to train. And I knew nobody else in the school had that. I didn't win all the matches. I couldn't figure out how I could win these matches. It turns out there is a bit of a strategy and a technique. Even if it's not quite Stallone's Over the Top, there is something more to arm wrestling. Fast forward a couple of years, and I think probably because of the success of that movie, there's a great pro wrestler. He was an Olympian. They called him the world's strongest man in professional wrestling. He did not actually win the Olympics. Ken Patera. And Ken Patera would do arm wrestling contests in Vince's ring. They'd be having a wrestling show, and then they would bring out the table when you're on commercial break, and they would set up for an arm wrestling match. And of course, arm wrestling, they're going back and forth. The guy takes a swing at him. Next thing, right, the whole pro wrestling breaks loose. But I really enjoyed arm wrestling, and it never caught on. In fact, when Dana started doing slap, I wanted Dana to do arm wrestling. So I share that with you because I've never really had a character. Like my time and involvement in the sport, as pointed out by my producer, Ryan, wasn't quite as strong as I thought it was. But one of the reasons for that is, where are you going to watch arm wrestling, for one? How many of you like arm wrestling, for two? I mean, when Ken Patera used to do this, Vince did big business with it. But I can't really remember anybody else doing it, and there's a reason that Vince stopped. So I finally find a character. Find an actual character. Devin Larratt. And many people will call him Devon, and many people will call him Larratt. Devon Larratt. I called him on the telephone, asked him how to say his name. It's Devin Larratt. I bring that to you because Joe Rogan did a piece on him, and Joe also wanted to get his name right, but I get a hold of Devin, and Devin was a military guy. So he was known for mental toughness. He was known for accepting all challenges. And as I go down this rabbit hole of watching him arm wrestle, he also has his own training methods, just like Stallone did in the movie, and just like I was doing downstairs on my secondhand machine from D.B. Cooper. He's working out, and he doesn't look like the strongest guy. He does not look like the biggest guy. He looks plenty big, and he looks plenty strong, but you can just tell by sizing him up that it's not completely about strength as we believed at Wood Middle School. The entire reason that my classmates and I pro wrestled, the entire reason Vince brought out Ken Patera, who was an Olympian known as the world's strongest man, was to prove the strength, and you do it through arm wrestling. I accepted that for a period until I came across Devin Larratt. He also teaches seminars. He puts on classes. He shows other guys. There's positions, there's maneuvers, there's techniques within arm wrestling. All right, save that thought. As I'm going down the YouTube rabbit hole, I see Devin out in what appeared to be IBJJF. It was their mats. It was their officials looking. If it wasn't IBJJF, it was something very, very well done and classy. Jiu-jitsu competition. No gi. In fact, the match that I saw, he won. Rear naked choke and tapped the guy out. I keep watching the YouTube cycle. It spits out a boxing match. Do you guys remember the guy, The Mountain? Conor had some kind of a back and forth with him. Conor had some kind of guy showed up in Conor's gym. Do you remember that? Conor did the spinning kick to his belly. Do these things ring a bell? Well, Devin Larratt is in a boxing match against that guy. And I even protested that. I even protested, wait a minute, this guy is named Thor. I don't think the Mountain was Thor, but I was told it was the same character, and I read some of the comments. It went a little back and forth, and that isn't overly my point. What a tough guy. What is this guy doing? He's training in his garage. He's putting on seminars for arm wrestling, which is a niche at best, and I, as an amateur wrestler, understand that. When you have a skill that you work so hard for, and you lay in bed at night, and you're just thinking constantly how I can do better. But there's other guys around the world, as few as there are, but they're having that same thought and that same dream, and you're trying to get a little bit of attention. You're trying to get people to look in. Then I transitioned to MMA, and I lived through the dark ages when we only existed on .coms. Very difficult to get on pay-per-view. Oh, by the way, people didn't respect it or think it was a sport. They called it human cockfighting. So I just share with you, and when I find out this guy's in the military, when I find out and see him get in the ring and box, when I see him go out and go no-gi jiu-jitsu, but his true love and passion is arm wrestling, I felt compelled to bring you guys in on this. I mean, if we got one of our own doing it, I think it might change how you guys view it. And if I do make that comparison to slap, by the way, that's coming sooner or later. Sooner or later, a recognizable name, one of your own, whether it's a jiu-jitsu champion or a boxing champion or even a UFC competitor, you're going to see going to slap, and it's going to be a game changer for that organization and for you. But Devin is getting ready to go into something called East versus West. It's April 20th. It's on pay-per-view. Super heavyweight, absolute. All the marbles go into this match, but he's taking on a Turkish athlete who, again, if you want to look at strength, if you want to look at size, they aren't comparable. He is taking on one of the biggest men that I've ever seen. And it's a rematch, and Devin not only lost the first time, he was injured. Something broke. Not good, but he's coming back. This will probably be his last shot at the Turk. And regardless, if my producer thinks I'm the biggest fan, I am interested in that match. I am. And I do think that that's one of our own. And I do think that slap and arm wrestling need to start studying one another. I came through amateur wrestling, which many people say is the world's oldest sport, which is true unless somebody got punched first. For sure, the oldest sport in the world, for sure, is either boxing or it's wrestling. The first contact was a punch, then it's boxing. If they grabbed and pushed and pulled each other first, then it's wrestling. Before there was courts and balls and mitts and referees and umpires and all this different stuff, but wrestling's had a very hard time getting off the ground. Wrestling's had a very hard time bringing in any money. Meanwhile, jiu-jitsu is very new. And they've got lots of money in the sport, even though it's the same guys. They have lots of attention. They have lots of notoriety. It's one of these things where they really need to watch each other. They really need to study who's where and why. So I'm kicking in. I'm doing my part. Devin Larratt coming for revenge. East versus West. He's our guy. He's taking on the Turk. I got some great memories with the Turks. I was actually asked to commentate this event because I spent time in Istanbul training. I knew a little bit of Turkish. So merhaba to you all. Meme severim, çok gazelles and bebek. And I'll update you next time.